Am I the asshole for leaving my wife at a party, going away solo when she was making me late? Throwaway. My 28 wife, 27, graduated medical school in 2021. They had a graduation party since everyone was vaccinated, but it was pretty small due to a recent outbreak there. You could only bring one guest and you had to socially distance again. Her medical school decided to invite the pandemic graduates to this year's graduation event. They planned this all out pretty last minute, only giving 3 weeks notice that it was happening. But my wife was very excited about it. She gets paid crumbs and works long hours as a resident, so I get why she wanted to relax and have fun. The issue is that I had a huge work trip the next day, that had been planned for months. I don't travel a lot for work, so they went all out to make this comfortable, and I had a lot riding on it. If I didn't do well I would probably be fired, but if I did well there were 2 open positions I could be promoted to. My wife wanted to come with me, so my company comped her flight and we were going to make a vacation out of it after my presentations. We were flying out the night of the party to ensure I made it on time for the meetings the next day. I told my wife we shouldn't go to the redo event since we had to fly out and it would be very tight. She insisted we go, since the party started at 3 p.m. and our flight left at 9 p.m. But the gala was 1.5 hours away from the airport. We made a plan to leave at 5:30 p.m., pack everything in our car beforehand, so we could go straight to the airport. But by 5:30 she just started saying goodbye. I told her we needed to leave ASAP, but she said no, we don't have to be 2 hours early for our flight, etc. Around 6 p.m. this guy from med school, who had a crush and asked her out multiple times, grabbed her hand and pulled her to another table. I went up to them and told him he needed to back off. He said I needed to treat her better and let her enjoy herself. I looked at my wife, but she ignored me. At that point I decided I wasn't going to try and convince her to stick to her word anymore. I told her I was leaving for the airport and took our car. There was a ton of traffic and security was a mess, so I only had a few minutes to spare before getting on the plane. She texted me horrible things. I never responded, engaged. But she kept texting me how I was horrible and don't understand what it's like to have COVID ruin a huge moment for you. I disagree. She still had a graduation party, it's not my fault she didn't get to dance. I don't see what the huge deal was and conversely think she didn't understand that this would cost me my job if I missed the flight. And since I make up around 70% of our income in a HCOL area, we would essentially be homeless. We've been on tense terms since this happened in June. She brings it up a lot and is recommending therapy so I can learn how to behave in a marriage. But I don't think we need it since she's the one who caused this whole problem in the first place and should take accountability for that first. But am I way off here? Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. I wouldn't be able to stay with someone who showed such blatant disregard for me. Not the asshole for the incident, but you should definitely go to therapy with your wife instead of blowing it off. It definitely seems like it's causing stress in your relationship. But it may be worth going to couples therapy, as maybe the therapist could help your wife understand accountability, and her disregarding you and your feelings. Info. What does your wife think you should have done? Missed the plane and blow off the trip? How would you explain that to your boss? Hoist her bodily over your shoulder and drag her off? Not the asshole, but maybe therapy will actually have her understand her own emotions. You can bring up your side and the therapist might be able to communicate to her how you feel so she understands that being late will adversely affect both of you as you are in a partnership. She needs to understand that you're a team and you're not trying to ruin her fun, but that you're working to secure better opportunities for the good of the relationship. Am I the asshole for uninviting my best man over a venue? My F23 best man, M24, recently got engaged to his boyfriend, F24, and he has begun the long search for his ideal wedding venue. Me and my fiancé, F24, have been engaged for around a year now, but never really started to look into venues as we actually already had one chosen due to my deceased great-grandmother telling me she'd love to see me be wed there. Despite being engaged for a shorter time than me and my partner, they plan to marry before us, which is something I am completely fine with. I am just pointing it out as it is important to my perspective and argument. Upon finding out the venue shut down, my fiancé actually went and found out where my great-grandparents got married, which turned out to be still around, and is actually very similar to our original venue. Not only that, but it is a short drive away and had regular opening days for people planning to get married to see if the venue is to their liking or not. Me and my fiancé decided to head down and invited a couple friends as well, one being the subject of the ask. He is usually really chatty, but after a few minutes of looking around the manor, he fell quiet and actually ended up wandering off before driving home early. At the time I thought it was because I wouldn't let him bring his fiancée to the open day, as we don't get along, but looking back now I guess I was wrong to assume that. When we announced that we had chosen the manor to be our wedding location, he rang me in tears and ended up admitting that he had fallen in love with the location the second he walked in and was hoping we would decide against getting married there. He proceeded to ask if I would be okay with him using the location instead of me, and I said no. He got heated very fast and asked me why I wasn't willing to hand off the location to my best friend, to which I explained that I was not okay with handing it off to his fiancée, as he has been nothing but horrible to me since we were kids purely over my weight, and that this was the only location left linked to my great-grandmother that I could get married in. He then asked if we could both use the location, and I said no again, adding that I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about how he walked down the aisle I'll be walking down, and slept in the suite I'll be sleeping in. He told me that if I didn't give him the okay, I'd be demoted from Mo to guest and he'd only attend my wedding if his fiancée was invited. I told him that if he seriously wants me to invite the same guy who calls me a hog and squeals at me to my wedding, then I'd not only be revoking his role as best man, but uninviting him too. He said that he saw where my priorities were and that he'd be glad for me to do so. I'm worried that I'm the asshole for not taking the offer to both when it was easily doable and for uninviting him over a request he made to feel better over being denied. You are the asshole. There is absolutely no reason why both couples can't use the same wedding venue. And if he's such a good friend, why can't you and the fiancé find a way to set aside your differences and at least be cordial to each other? Uninviting your best man is such a childish thing to do. I was going NTA until this. He then asked if we could both use the location, and I said no again. You are the asshole, you don't decide where other people are doing their wedding. You don't own the venue, it's okay for the two of you to marry in the same place. Actually, if you were real friends, you could find this a fun experience. He sucks for marrying your bully. Why are you still calling each other friends at this point? I have no clue. Best friends fighting over a venue? Either you should both feel ashamed, or you're not BFFs. You for refusing to share a wedding venue, and him for letting his fiancée verbally abuse you. Am I the asshole for not cooking vegan food or ordering any at a housewarming dinner? Alright, so, I'm a 23-year-old woman. I recently started living by myself and I decided to host a housewarming dinner, get-together. The invite list was fairly small, 5 family members and 3 friends. My apartment is quite small, so that was enough to be cramped lol. I called everybody beforehand to make sure whatever I was cooking would adhere to dietary restrictions and allergies etc. A few people asked if they were welcome to bring other foods, wine, drinks etc. and I said sure. So it happened last night and I had basically cooked a scaled-down Thanksgiving meal, smallish turkey, chicken, potatoes, mac and cheese and salad. I was also expecting other people to bring stuff and almost everyone did. It turned into kind of a potluck situation. My brother ended up coming a bit late, which isn't too unusual, but he had a woman who he introduced as his girlfriend in tow. I didn't really have a problem with it. I was thinking it would have been nice for him to tell me she was coming, but from the way he explained it, it was a last-minute decision. We're all standing around my tiny table praying, and when we're done it's time for food. My brother's girlfriend asked what was vegan at the table and said she'd been eyeing a few things. I said I personally hadn't cooked anything vegan, but one of my friends who is vegetarian had. It was some kind of stuffed peppers thing. I wasn't expecting to have a vegan, so I wasn't prepared, but his girlfriend seemed really upset. My brother pulled me aside about an hour after and said it wasn't really good hosting to only have one dish for her to eat. To be fair, she did look sort of left out just eating stuffed peppers and I did feel bad. But when my brother suggested I order her some food to make up for it, I said no. Vegan food is quite expensive where I live and I had already gone over my budget for the month with my dinner. I told him he was definitely welcome to order it, but I personally couldn't afford another $25–30 on one meal for her. There was no big scene or anything. He stayed until the end of the night and she stayed too. I told her she was welcome to raid the fridge because I was sure I had some food suited to her, but she didn't take me up on that offer. This morning, however, he called and said that I should have at least ordered for her, considering I only had one dish she could eat. and that it was insulting to her being told she could go through the fridge, like some rat or something. Now I'm conflicted. Last night I didn't feel that bad for not ordering, but today I do based on what he said and how she felt. Am I the asshole? I'm not too familiar with Reddit, so feel free to let me know if I haven't been clear or formatted this wrong. Tia. So this part on is an edit. I read through most of the comments so far and I'd like to clarify that his girlfriend didn't say anything mean or demanding to me, and I'm fairly sure she never intended for me to hear the rat thing. She seemed like a sweet girl, just I guess she felt out of place. I appreciate the people giving fair comments, but some of you are just being mean to her, which I ask you kindly not to do when giving your opinion. Thank you. Not the asshole. You don't crash a party, then get mad because nothing is to your liking. That's not how this works. If he had given you notice, then you could have prepared a few dishes, but for her to be a literal stranger then get mad because you didn't cook food to her tastes is ridiculous on her part and your brother's. Not the asshole. You can't cook food for people you don't even know exist. Your brother is entitled AMD rude. Why didn't he order her food? Not the asshole. You had no idea she was coming and called around before. If your brother thought this was such a big issue, he would have told you when you asked. Not the asshole. She was an unexpected guest and your brother should have gotten her a vegan meal. I've hosted plenty of parties at my house to know you're not going to cook or order everything that everyone likes. The fact he's making you feel shitty is terrible. Not the asshole. You have no obligation to provide for an uninvited guest who you didn't know would be there until after the food was cooked.